this is Jo from Maths Tutor Me. Today we're doing factorising and we're going to factorise some harder trinomials. Hopefully you've been practicing your easier trinomials from last lesson. You need those to be doing pretty well. You need to be pretty confident with those before you move on with these ones. These type of trinomials, there's about 4 different ways that I know of solving them. I'm going to show you the method today that I think is the easiest of all the methods that I know and the most reliable. So let's start. What you need to do is multiply the 3 with the 2, which will give you a 6. Now when you're doing the easier trinomials, you had to find 2 numbers that multiplied to give this one and added to give this one. Okay, now all you have to do for this method today is find 2 numbers that multiply to give the 6 and add to give the 5. So that's why we had to multiply that 3 in there. So 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and add to give 5 would be a 2 and a 3, a positive 2 and a positive 3. Okay, now instead of putting those straight into brackets, what you do is you split the 5x term to be 2x plus 3x. You use these numbers here to split this term. 2x plus 3x plus 2, this number here staying on the end. Okay, and then what we do is we factorise in pairs. Now the first and the third term would actually go together really nicely. So let's do 3x for those 2 terms, which would give me x plus 1. And then the 2x and the 2, I could factorise out a 2, which would give me an x plus 1. Now, as you know, if these brackets are the same, I can factorise further to be x plus 1, and the 3x plus 2 will sit in the second bracket. And that's it. That is the method for factorising harder trinomials. Okay, let's try it again for question 2. First of all, multiply the 4 with the negative 3, which is negative 12. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give a negative 12 and add to give 11. Okay, so you can have your scrap bit of paper if you need to help you work these out, but hopefully you're getting pretty good at them, and you will know that that would be a 12 and a negative 1. That would work for that. Okay, so let's split this middle term. So 4g squared stays. Split the 11g to be a positive 12g and a minus 1g or a minus g, and the minus 3 still sitting on the end. Then factorise in pairs, so 4g out the front of the first 2 would give me a g plus 3. These terms remaining, I can only factorise out a negative sign, which would give me g plus 3. And then the g plus 3 is a factor, and 4g minus, I'd have to put a 1 there to finish that off. Okay, that's done. Question 3. Okay, let's have a look. I need to multiply the 15 with the 8. So 15 times 8 is 120. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give 120 and add to give a negative 26. Well, we'll check it in a minute, but let's try negative 20 and negative 6. Okay, so you can always have a go and go negative 20 times negative 6. That does make 120. Okay, so let's split that middle term, 15m squared. So instead of 26, it's going to be negative 20m and minus 6m plus 8. Factorise in pairs, I can take a 5m out of the first 2 terms, giving me 3m minus 4. These last 2 terms here, I can take out a negative 2, which will give me 3m minus 4. Okay, 3m minus 4 is the factor, so 5m and minus 2 goes in the second bracket. Okay, question 4. Sometimes if you can, it is definitely easier if you can take out a common factor first. Each of these terms here can be divided by 2. And that will make my numbers not quite as big, so it's hopefully a little bit easier to find my numbers that I'm working with. So let's go 2 bracket 5a squared minus 23a, divide that by 2 makes 12. Okay, so that 2 is just going to sit out the front the whole way through the question. Let's multiply 5 times 12, that's 60. Okay, so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give 60 and add to give a negative 23. Well, 20 times 3 makes 60, so a negative 20 and a negative 3 will make negative 23 and a positive 60, so that works. So leave the 2 sitting out the front. We're going to have 5a squared minus 20a minus 3a plus 12. Okay, so getting lots of brackets here. What I'll do is I'll change these outside brackets to square ones just to set them apart a little bit. I can take a 5 out of 5a out of the first 2 terms, giving me an a minus 4. And in these next 2 terms, I can take out a negative 3, giving me a minus 4. Close that bracket, close square bracket. Now, the a minus 4 is a factor, and the 5a minus 3 goes after it, and it comes down to a nice, neat answer like that. Alright, time for you to have a try. Okay, so here's 4 more questions, just 4 because they take a little bit of time and effort, these ones, a bit of working out. So pause the video, try these 4 questions using the method we've just learnt, and then restart to see the answers. Okay, let's go. So first of all, 6 times 2 is 12. So 2 numbers that times to give 12 and add to give 7 would be 3 and 4. So let's break 6x squared plus 3x plus 4x, splitting that, and the plus 2 will sit at the end. So factorizing in pairs, 3x would be my factor of these first 2 terms, giving me a 2x plus 1. The last 2 terms here I can factorize out a 2, giving me a 2x plus 1. So the 2x plus 1 is a factor, and 3x plus 2 will go in the second bracket. Hopefully you got that. Let's try question 2. 5 times 12 is 60. So we're looking for 2 numbers that times to give 60 and add to give a negative 19. Okay, let's think. Alright, what about negative 15 and a negative 4? Yep, that works. Remember, you can always use your piece of paper to help you write down options until you find what works. So 5w squared minus 15w minus 4w plus 12. Okay, factorizing the first 2 terms, I can take a 5w, give me w minus 3 inside. These last terms here, a minus 4 can come out to give w minus 3 again. W minus 3 is a factor, and the 5w and the minus 4, there it is. Question 3. Times the 12 with the negative 35 there. Okay, so I'm looking for 2 numbers that times to give a negative 420, and they have to add to give a negative 1. Now, when you have a really small number here and one's positive and one's negative, because we know one has to be positive and one has to be negative because of this minus sign, the 2 numbers have to be really close together. So you want 2 very close numbers, only separated by 1, that times to give 420. And that is going to be a 20 times a 21. Okay, so you can always do a little bit of fiddling around in your calculator to find the numbers that are going to work. But a 20 times a 21 is going to give us 420. But I would have to have a negative 21 in order to make these numbers negative here. So, let's split our second term there. So minus a will become a positive 20a and a minus 21a and a minus 35. Factorizing in pairs, these first two terms I could factorize out a 4a, giving me 3a plus 5. These two terms I could take a negative out as a factor and a 7, giving me 3a plus 5. Alright, 3a plus 5 is a factor, and 4a minus 7 goes in the second bracket. Last one, and we have a common factor in each of those terms. Each of those can be divided by 4. So 4 comes out the front, I would be left with 2y squared minus 7y and minus 15. Okay, that's smaller numbers are always easier to find the factors. So times the 2 with the 15, we get 30, negative 30. So my numbers have to multiply to give a negative 30 and add to give a negative 7. So 10 and 3, a negative 10 and a positive 3 would work. So leave the 4 out the front. 2y squared, split the 7y to be a negative 10y and a positive 3y minus 15. Okay, and the next step, let's put some square brackets in so we can use some brackets for these. We can factorize a 2y out of the first two terms, giving me y minus 5. The last terms here I can factorize out a 3, giving me y minus 5. Okay, leaving the 4 out the front, the y minus 5 is a factor, and the 2y plus 3, there it is. It all comes out so nicely in the end. Okay, those are some fun questions. Hopefully you are getting the hang of them. Keep practicing, and I will see you next time. Bye.